Hey there, good evening. Nice to see you. It's time for the Bronx Buzz. This is Bronx Nets program. We talk to reporters, writers, editors, all different people. And in our second segment today, we're going to get into a little music segment that's going to be very interesting to you. But let's start out and say good evening to Liya Cui, who is with the Mott Haven Herald and Hunts Point Express. Nice to see you, Liya. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you
Good.
for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Thank you for joining us. Of course, both the Mott Haven Herald and the almost said Long Island Express. No, it's the Hunts Point Express. Are papers that come out of college in graduate school institutions. So tell me a little bit about your work. You are a Craig Newmark School student.
Yes, I'm a first semester student at the Craig Newmark Graduate School of Journalism at CUNY. So yeah, I take this class called Craft, where everyone in class writes for these two news sites that focus on the South Bronx, Mott Haven Herald, and Hunts Point Express.
And what is it that drove you? You from New York at this, or you came to New York to do this?
I've lived in New York for about 7 years now. I came here for undergrad. And I've done a little journalism in undergrad and after that, but I started my career as a copywriter and decided to pivot back to something I was more passionate about. But I felt I needed some guidance to get me there. So that's why.
I'm just out of curiosity, undergraduate here in the city somewhere?
Yes, at the New School.
At the New School. Great. So what, like you say, something that means something, what motivates you to do journalism? This is not easy. It's not as maybe lucrative, and there may not be as many jobs as there are in nursing or healthcare or something like that. But what is it? And believe me, I understand. What is it? What's the passion that drives you there?
I just love stories and I love storytelling, and I'm not a very good fiction writer. I'm not good at making things up. And I'm just interested in seeing like what's happening, especially at really specific stories. The more specific, I think, the better. I think it's interesting to see just what's happening in the world and to share that with other people.
Well, one of the things that I am learning from doing this program, many of the young journalists like yourself really appreciate the detail. And I suppose when I was learning journalism and all that, it wasn't quite like that. But a lot of the young journalists, they really write stuff in such detail. What about covering the borough of the Bronx? This must have been a something of real joy for you, because this is a very interesting place, to say the least.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I didn't know anything about the South Bronx before this class. And something that our professors told us, the mission of these two news sites was that when other New York City papers would write about the Bronx, all they wrote about was crime. And so the mission of the Mott Haven Herald and Hunts Point Express is to paint a fuller picture of the South Bronx and really focus on what the community wants and what they want to read about. And so I like that we're serving.
It's really like I've been doing this for a very long time. It's really like undiscovered territory. We have all this stuff. We have 1.5 million people, and nobody knows we're here. It's crazy, but it gives great fodder for a young journalist, for any journalist, and again, I know that as well as anybody. So let's just segue right in. I thought this was really interesting. I mean, I know the people involved. I know Majora and James, who are involved in Bronxlandia. I was not aware that this became like Kafka-esque. It kept growing, that they simply wanted to open a nice place, nice venue in the Bronx, in the South Bronx, but they ran into a lot of issues. Why don't you recap it for us and talk about your story? The Bronxlandia event venue is one step closer to a liquor license. That seems to be the sticking point.
Well, they have their license now, but I'll start from the beginning.
That was when you wrote the article. That's right.
Yes. So to recap, the Bronxlandia is this performance and events venue in Hunts Point that opened in late 2021. It's the largest venue of its kind in the area. It can hold like 300 people. And it's owned by Majora Carter and James Chase. They're a married couple and business partners. And Majora is well known in the neighborhood for her work in the community and environmental justice and
Yeah, sure. She's been around a long time.
totally. And what she's doing with Bronxlandia, and they also have another business, the Boogie Down Grind, which is a cafe bar nearby. The point is to revitalize the neighborhood and create more spaces, more public spaces for the community to meet and have like arts and cultural events.
Sure. What could be more important in a community like an underserved community like the South Bronx,
Yeah.
to have an artist venue like that? What's the problem?
The problem
I mean, I'm checking all the boxes going, yeah, this is a good thing. This is a good thing. This is a good thing. Why did it become so controversial?
Well, the controversy is just surrounding its liquor license. So James Chase went to start that process last spring. And so to get a liquor license in New York, you first have to notify your local community board.
Right.
And at that point, they can either approve or disapprove, but their opinion is only advisory. So the New York State Liquor Authority makes the final decision and actually grants the liquor license. But they will take what the community board has to say into account. So James Chase went to Community Board 2,
Right.
which covers Hunts Point, and they said, we approve, but we have stipulations. And they all had to do with like security and operating measures for Bronxlandia events. They wanted things like more cameras, walk through metal detectors. They wanted to be notified 30 days before they had any event. They wanted them to close at midnight. It was things like that. So,
before you move on,
yes.
So I'm just hearing that and saying, well, it sounds reasonable the way the world is right now. Certainly, if you have music events, it sometimes attracts people who are a little crazier than less crazy, and so that sounds reasonable. Okay, what's the problem?
Well, James verbally agreed at that point, but then they came back and said, actually, these are too restrictive. For example, the closing at midnight, under state liquor authority rules, any business with a liquor license can actually close at 4 a.m. So that 12 a.m. was a lot more restrictive than normally it would be.
Yeah, I could see how that could be a problem. And for a venue of that sort, sure. Especially in the Bronx, I mean, people are going to come out. They don't start until 10 or 11 o'clock some Saturday nights for sure.
Totally. And so they came back and said, these are too restrictive. Also, the community board said, we want Majora to show up in person to talk to us before we can go
because her name was on the documents. And all
she was
stuff.
more like official owner of Bronx.
So let's move it forward. How did it turn out, and where are we at now?
To summarize, this ensued like about a year and a half of back and forth between the community board and Bronxlandia.
Liya, welcome to the Bronx.
Yeah, because and what is interesting about this is that it got pretty contentious. It got like emotional at times, or James and Majora are saying that some members of the community board were being abusive or unprofessional.
I get it. Yep.
Yeah, and that
again, those of us who've been covering this stuff for a long time, we know the personalities involved, and we know the tensions involved. So, has it been resolved, or did they get the liquor license? Are they moving forward, or are we still in this debate stage?
Yeah. So Bronxlandia actually did get their liquor license back in June, but there was an issue because the state liquor authority approved it on like a staff level, where it's like a conditional license. Right. And then the liquor authority is supposed to have a full board meeting where the community board can come and air any opposition that they have. And the liquor authority had some kind of clerical error and did not notify community board 2. So then they found out and complained, and then they revoked the license a month later.
So now we're still in somewhat of even though they have a license, but there's somewhat of a negotiation still going on.
It was a pending license.
Just taking a step back, imagine an underserved community like the Bronx, and here's an opportunity to have it. And I'm not taking sides of who's right or who's not right, but I'm just saying, imagine having this and wanting to do something good and here we are, years not being able to do it. Maybe one day I'll bring Majora and James on the program and talk to them about it. Before we run out of time, you were also wrote about car thefts, and I thought this was interesting because I'm working on it. You connected it to TikTok.
Yeah. So
explain this. What is this?
Over the past year, there's been a rise in car thefts in the Bronx, but also across the city, actually across the country. But in the past year, it's been the worst in Queens, and then the Bronx is second worst. And a lot of that increase can be attributed to this TikTok challenge that went viral last year. It's called the Kia Challenge. It was basically, it shows you that certain Kia and Hyundai car models are really easy to break into.
Wow. So TikTok opened the door and said, here's how you do it.
Basically, yeah. And because it's TikTok, a lot of these car thefts have been committed by people. I think about half of them have been committed by people under 21, maybe about like 40%.
Right, because they've been watching it. And then I guess the advice to the general public: don't buy a Kia or a Honda because you're in. Wow. And so is this being addressed in some form? I mean, listen, it's the same thing as the ghost guns and all the instructions how to build a gun. I mean, it's all the wrong sort of use for media. And so is there any legal enforcement able to get in the middle of this?
Yes. So back in September, Governor Kathy Hochul and Mayor Eric Adams, they both announced these big comprehensive plans to crack down on the car thefts, which involves more funding for the NYPD to send out more patrol cars to stop them from happening. Also, like raising more public awareness. The NYPD has been holding these events where they can give to people free Apple AirTags to put in their cars in case they do get stolen.
So they do get stolen, then they can be traced. Listen, we're almost out of time, but I want to thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's Liya Cui, who is a reporter for the Mount Haven Herald and the Hunts Point Express. We need you in the Bronx. You are the kind of people we want. Can I ask you, once you're finished with your schooling, going to stick around? We'd love to have you.
Oh, totally. Going. Yeah.
Oh, no. Great. I'm excited to hear that. All right. Listen, thank you, Liya. We appreciate your time. And keep reporting on our borough. As I said, we need people like you, and we appreciate your time this evening. Let's take a short break, folks. When we come back, we're going up to the Northwest Bronx, and we're going to talk about a music venues. We're going to talk about a music venue that does something very unique and special. We'll be right back.